Welcome to Proof of PR, your passport to the world of public relations for Bitcoin and Web3. I'm your host, Kelley Weaver, CEO of Melrose PR, a leading provider of communications and PR strategy in our unique industry. Get ready for an inside look into the future of finance, technology, and entrepreneurship from those driving innovation in the space. Join us as we learn how they generate headlines, cut through the noise, and grow their brand awareness through media placements, press mentions, and thought leadership. These are the stories behind their success. This is Proof of PR. Hi, everyone. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Matt Leising, who is the co-founder and editor-in-chief at Decential Media. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, Kelley. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
I've loved watching your journey evolve. You worked at Bloomberg for a very, very, very long time, as I recall. And then more recently, you co-founded Decential. So tell me a little bit about your background to sort of discovering crypto and then, what that more recent leap has looked like.
Pretty straightforward. Like I was at Bloomberg News for about 17 years. I started in 2004. I eventually kind of ended up, my beat became like market structure, which is like, are markets working? What's the kind of regulation going on? Are there enforcement actions? Are there scams? And then you got to understand like the plumbing of like the treasury market in the US or the futures market. And I would write about exchanges like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or the New York Mercantile Exchange and how they were sort of transitioning from member owned kind of collectives into like electronic trading and like the huge shift that the pit like trading days were like gone, and now everybody was doing it on computers. And then we went through the financial crisis, which was quite terrifying to be honest, but also as a reporter at Bloomberg News, I felt like I had like a front row seat to this global kind of crisis that was happening. And it was really sort of fascinating in a sort of morbid way. And so by the time all of that kind of I guess it was around 2015, 2014, Bitcoin, had been around for a few years. And I didn't get it at first. I didn't understand the basics of it. I didn't understand how it could have any value. But I finally read something that just kind of unlocked it for me. And it was just really an explanation, a very short and good explanation of the underlying blockchain element to Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, okay, that suddenly makes a lot of sense. This is a network and it's a bunch of computers around the world that is on this network, and that's verifying transactions, making sure you're not trying to double spend or trying to sell somebody coins you don't have. And that all just sort of clicked for me. And I realized that Wall Street was very much this same sort of network, and banks and their customers are sending money and securities back and forth all day long. That's what they do. It just made sense. I was like, oh, okay, this could probably really change how Wall Street works and how banks interact with their customers and finance in general. So I went to my editor and I'm like, hey, I want to make this part of my beat. And he had no idea what I was talking about. That was in 2015. There was not very much attention being paid to it within Bloomberg News at that time. There were several reporters kind of scattered around the world who were covering this. But then in 2017, Bitcoin hit its all-time high of about $20,000, and everybody was talking about it in the U.S. around the Thanksgiving table and all that stuff. So it really kind of, that first frenzy sort of cemented it into my world, and I just kind of kept going on from there.
So casually threw in that you were at Bloomberg for 17 years, and I just want to underscore that because that's a really long time to kind of be on that journey. So you have sort of a deep, very holistic background of the traditional finance space, and then kind of discovering this new piece. And one of the reasons that we connected so long ago is because you were one of the only ones at Bloomberg who was paying any attention to Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto in general. And then shortly thereafter, I feel like there were several of your colleagues that also were covering the beat, but you were very early.
Yeah, within Bloomberg itself, like the organization, I think at the top, there was initially a big, quite pervasive skepticism about Bitcoin. They saw it as a way to buy drugs on the Silk Road, that it was used for illicit purposes, and they didn't really want to have it tarnish Bloomberg's reputation. So they didn't want to give it any sort of credibility. I think that definitely shifted over the years. It certainly helped when the price was going crazy in 2017. Very hard to ignore when all your customers are like getting into this market for the first time. And Bloomberg was really well positioned because it's like the data on the terminal is so amazing. And there's not a lot of great places. Back then, at least, there weren't a lot of great places to get data on Bitcoin and about the trading and all that stuff. So I think it slowly sort of became more acceptable at Bloomberg. And then all of a sudden, all these new people were coming in and covering it. And I had editors from teams I didn't even know, like asking me to do stuff. And, it got a little frustrating after a while because it's like, where were you guys when it was, nobody was talking about it? I was here covering it. And now you're sort of like coming in Johnny come lately and asking me to do all this work for you. So that was, we can get into that, but that was one of the frustrations and one of the things that made me want to leave Bloomberg eventually.
It was a big leap that you made. Certainly going from like Bloomberg and, stability and being one of the, kind of working your way up to really the top. Yeah. And then to jumping into like startup land with a brand new media company. So tell me about that.
It really came from my book. So I wrote a book called Out of the Ether. It's the history of Ethereum. It's the story of the founders like Vitalik Buterin and Joe Lubin and all those guys. And just the crazy tumultuous times that sort of birthed Ethereum and how it's like one disaster after another, like couldn't stop this technology because I think it's just like so powerful. Soon after that, my now partner, Neil Berkeley, he's a filmmaker, he's a documentary filmmaker. He got in touch and he wanted to option the book and turn it into a documentary. And we just started talking, and so we really saw eye to eye in terms of how we tell stories. He's just doing it in film, and I'm doing it with writing. But we love characters, and we love really getting in deep on people as a way of showing rather than telling. It was kind of time for me to leave at Bloomberg. I needed a new challenge, and I had no idea how challenging it would be to leave and do a startup. But I think everybody must have that sort of initial ignorance, otherwise nobody would do it. And so we just started talking and mapping things out, and we realized that we thought that there was an area that wasn't really getting covered too much. And that was just really stories about the people who are building Web3 and building blockchain and building crypto apps. So like from my book and from Neil's documentary work, like he did a fantastic documentary on Gilbert Gottfried. And you saw him in such a different way than like you might see Gilbert Gottfried in public, or when he's performing. So we wanted to do that, but for crypto. And we both knew that there were 1,000,001 amazing characters in this industry. Everybody's weird and usually super smart and strange and funny, very relatable. And so that's been our focus from day one, is to just tell the stories of the people. We're not concerned about prices, and we're not a pump and dump media company. We're not going to tell you what to buy. We're not going to tell you what to sell. We want to bring these people to life for you. And then hopefully along the way, you can learn maybe more about what an NFT is, or how a DAO works, or what a layer 2 is. And so that's always been our strategy, is like, let's tell a great story about these people. And then along the way, that makes it easier to start to kind of understand this technology and decentralization and how it does, I think, offer a new alternative for the way that people organize themselves and the way that business can be conducted.
That's fantastic. And to be honest, it resonates so much, because what drew me into this industry was the people too. It's fascinating, all the different cast of characters. And so having that be the mandate for this media company and sort of storytelling in that fashion is very interesting. Again,
like the cast of characters, it just never gets old. And, there's constant flux. And, what's the latest scam? What's the latest implosion? What's the latest FTX? It's never boring.
Well, you did some really cool investigative journalism for your book. You kind of went all over the world, as I recall, to conduct some of these interviews and get to know people. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And by the way, if you're listening and you haven't picked up a copy of Out of the Ether, you got to give it a read, because it's sort of like what Nathaniel Popper's book is for Bitcoin. I feel like Matt's book is for Ethereum.
Yeah. So the book got started with the magazine story that I did while I was still at Bloomberg. It was called The Ether Thief, the magazine story, and it was really just a big dive into this hack that happened on Ethereum in 2016 called the DAO, the Decentralized Autonomous Organization. Everyone in Ethereum had kind of put all their money into one pot. And the idea was that people would vote for projects that they liked that would then get, if they got a winning vote, they would get some of that money to go off and develop their project so that the Ethereum ecosystem could grow and decentralized applications could be made. Time of the hack, there was $250 million. There was $250 million sitting in this smart contract, and it got hacked. And people just watched as the money got drained. There's nothing they could do about it. And so that kicked all these people into gear, and this group of hackers got together and tried to figure out, okay, how do we stop this? The community more generally was like mobilized by Vitalik Buterin and others about how do we rectify this? And so it was just this fascinating story of this early Ethereum community and how this very high profile hack was kind of threatening to bring it all down. Everything kind of came out in the end. There's a million twists and turns, and it's a really fascinating story. One of the most fascinating stories I've ever come across in my career. And I had just a blast writing it and getting to know the hackers and other folks. And so once the story came out in the magazine, it was well received, and everybody, who I had spoken to felt like, I'd taken care to get the story right and to dig in on things. And I realized this is a great jumping off point for a book, because I want to tell more about this DAO hack. And I could then alternate chapters about like the history of Ethereum, like who is Vitalik Buterin and where did he come from? Who were the other co-founders? What is the Ethereum Foundation, and sort of all the challenges and the way that it all came together. Got a book deal for that, and went about writing it and reporting on it. And yeah, I went all over the world. I went to Europe. I went to Japan. I went to Burning Man for a week. Because you got to go to Burning Man. But actually, there's a pretty large decentralized crypto community that goes to Burning Man every year, and one of the main characters in the book, Griff Green, he runs it. So I felt like that would be a great setting for a part of the book. I also kind of took it upon myself to try to figure out who hacked the DAO, and I had some success with that, not as much as I was hoping for. There is another book that came out after mine that kind of took it even further. So there's a little bit of a whodunit in it, where I'm sort of like one of the characters, like going around and trying to figure out, like basically sitting down with a couple of people and basically asking them if they hacked the DAO, which is not something that I usually was used to in my reporting career. So in the end, like the magazine story was the most fun I'd ever had. And then the book, just 10x that. It was just really great. And everybody gave me so much time and it was very generous. So by the end of it, I just had stacks of notebooks and research, and all I had to do was sort of like pick the pieces out and put them together because I knew the story was there. And I ended up writing it, I think, in about 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks. It just kind of poured out of me after about a year of reporting. So that was really a lot of fun, and I still get those royalty checks every once in a while, so it's nice.
That's awesome. Will you write another book, do you think?
Nothing has really come across my radar that would just screamed like the Ethereum story. That doesn't mean there aren't stories out there. I think there are. I've just, right now, running Decential is like full time. It's really, I would have no capacity to do a book on top of what I'm doing now. I think there'll be a book or two more in me in the future at some point.
So in the meantime, Decential Media, tell me more about the types of characters that you've come across over the past couple of years. And I do eventually want to talk about your podcast that you've launched as well, Decent People. You've had lots of great guests on that as well.
Yeah. So we are covering it from a couple of different angles. Like one thing, when you're talking about people, as we are, we're putting them first. It really is about culture. And I think the culture around crypto is very strong, and it spans different industries like entertainment, music, art, finance. A lot of different industries are now finding their way into blockchain and decentralized technology. Got different reporters around the world. Like we've got somebody in London who writes about how music is using Web3. It's really about getting an artist and a fan sort of in a direct relationship, because right now you've got, record companies, you've got companies that run like the touring kind of industry, like Ticketmaster, and there's all these intermediaries that get in the way between a band and its fans. And so this like Web3 technology is allowing artists to directly connect with their fans and get to know more about them in ways that hasn't been possible before. Then there's digital art and the NFT scene that has gone crazy and then kind of crashed and is now coming back. We've got a guy here in LA who writes about entertainment and how movie studios and television production and entertainment in general is experimenting with Web3. It might be little things like Marvel getting involved with an NFT project that, will reward fans with like special access at certain events if you hold the NFT. And so big companies are dipping their toes in to this. And so that's what we're writing about. And we're always, trying to get the people who are behind the scenes here to talk to us, and so that we can tell their story. Then of course there's the financial aspect, the DeFi part of it, where it's about money and it's about Wall Street and it's banks. And that's sort of where I come in, because that's my history. One of my favorite types of people to talk to is somebody who has a similar background to mine, where they understood the market structure side of things, but maybe they were working for an exchange or they were at a bank trading desk, and then they kind of got red pilled and went into the crypto rabbit hole, and they came out and now they're like running a startup, that's like they're making a decentralized exchange or something in that world. Because I think it hits differently with them because they know how clunky and sort of in need of an upgrade like most of the infrastructure is in finance in general. And so here is this opportunity to sort of like remake it in a new way. We've got my partner Neil is making films about crypto and about decentralization. So we've been doing some films about crypto mining, like Bitcoin mining in rural Texas or in rural Oklahoma, where they're using natural gas that would have just gotten flared off and burned to power Bitcoin mining machines. We've got a series that
is that published?
Yeah,
is that live?
Yeah, these are all on the website. And then
I can't wait to go watch that.
Yeah, they're good. And I mean, Neil is an amazing filmmaker, and the production and just the way it looks, I don't think there's anything else out there in crypto that looks like what we're doing. And I'm really proud of it. And so we've got another series that's called Decent Days, where it's like a day in the life of somebody who's in the world, in the Web3 world. So the first one we had is a guy named Ruben Rojas. He's an artist, and he just was able to like greatly expand his reach and kind of take it to a new level with the fans that he has when he was getting into NFTs. And then the next one we're doing is on a woman who was on OnlyFans, and she was doing, like an OnlyFans channel and sort of, it's adult entertainment kind of stuff. And then she got kicked off because, they didn't like what she was doing. So she's now gone and built like her own Web3 platform for herself and for other performers where, you can't get kicked off this platform and you can get paid directly in crypto. And it's giving her the ability to do what she wants and without a centralized sort of gatekeeper who can just shut you off arbitrarily on any given day. That's kind of the 30,000 foot view of what we're doing. And we're always, trying to do more films and just, writing and podcasting and just now it seems like there's another bull market here. We can see the sort of interest and people coming back into the space who might have been burned by a few years ago.
You basically started this project and this company right when things were starting to slow down again. Am I right about that? And has it been easier to kind of act? Like how has the market sort of condition impacted your sort of journey here? And are you excited about the bull? Are you not excited? I mean, I'm curious.
We were able to raise a seed seed fundraising. Just right kind of as things sort of started turning. And so we got lucky. And then, so we were sort of getting going and everything, like Neil and I were like spinning this up when there was a really strong bull market. And it was, the NFT craze was in full effect. And it was like all the profile picture stuff and, Beeple with the art. And it was just money everywhere. And so, but then, it quickly kind of bottomed and the whole market turned. And for the majority of the time that we've been putting stuff out, it's been this crypto winter. For a media company, you want people to be interested. You need eyeballs, you want readers, you want listeners, you want viewers. So that was tricky because I think a lot of people say, the bear market's great for building. And I think that's correct if you're building like a real startup, like somebody who's actually building like a Web3 protocol, because you can just kind of put your head down and focus on that. But at a media company, we need an audience. We want to be reaching as many people as we can. So I'm excited for the bull market because those people are coming back. And I feel like we're in a really good place where we have all of our kind of systems in the back end that you don't see are really in place. And like we've been doing this for a couple of years now. And if people discover us, there's a ton of content to just like go back and check out. I'm happy about that. And I'm hoping, that this bull market isn't going to implode with some huge scam again. But, Kelley, like that's probably going to happen. It's just, we just don't know. We don't know what it is yet.
Don't put that out there. No, don't say that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Sorry.
But it sounds like the timing's been a bit lucky because now as you said, while it's been challenging, I'm sure, for all businesses in the industry, during a prolonged slow period, now you have this reservoir of amazing content that you're right. If people discover you, then they can kind of go down their own rabbit hole journey of finding great content. So perhaps there will be some silver linings in this timing.
We've only recently begun doing a Google ad campaign where you basically pay Google and they advertise for you and put your stuff in front of people. And our traffic has 10x'd after doing this. So, we're talking about gatekeepers. Like Google is probably the ultimate gatekeeper because it was almost like for a couple of years, our content was sort of invisible and we were only getting a couple hundred people a day to come into the site. And now we start advertising with Google. And like we had 3,500 people come to the website yesterday. And it's just like, the arrow just has gone straight up.
Well, it's probably timing of the market too, because there's more people interested in what the heck is going on here.
You could literally see it in our traffic the day that the Google ad campaign went live. It just went straight up. And I was just kind of shaking my head, like feeling like an idiot because I'm learning so much of this stuff on the fly. But basically, for any startup people out there, if you need to advertise with Google, do it right away because it's basically they run the game.
Well, there were some. Google also didn't let certain. They had a moment there where they wouldn't even. I think after the ICO bubble burst, all big companies were very wary to let crypto companies target customers in any shape or form. So it's possible that wasn't even possible. Until
YouTube as well, which is owned by Google. I think they were just like shutting down certain shows and podcasts and things that were crypto related.
So you also have this podcast where you chat with founders. How do you pick those guests? How do you find people to come on the show?
It's a mix of pitches that I get because the podcast is out there, so people know that they can come to me and suggest guests. More than one has been pitched from Melrose PR. So, and then there's just people I know and or that I want to try to get to know. So I just sort of follow my nose and reach out to folks. As things are happening, like with Solana, I think it's getting more accepted and more users are coming to it. So I'm trying to get folks on to talk about Solana or. Just recently had a podcast with somebody talking about the Lightning Network and Bitcoin, and that's not something I usually delve into. So it was fun to kind of learn some stuff about that because I'm usually sort of very Ethereum focused. Trying to get people who I think would be interesting, and then pitches that come my way. I love it when there's a guest on that just really is open to talking about like how they got into Web3 and like some of these folks have just fascinating backgrounds. Like I've had people on where I'm like, you sound like you were a spy for like the CIA. You were working in China and doing all this industrial sort of like espionage stuff. And like, then you were in Africa and now, you're running like security for Chainalysis where they're, tracking people down on the blockchain. And you find these people that just have these amazing stories and backstories. And I love kind of getting people out of their shell and getting them talking about themselves and stuff like that.
You mentioned having, receiving pitches. A lot of the audience here is, PR and marketing professionals. So I'd love to hear your sort of tips, if you have any, of what might pique your attention when you receive a pitch, because you've been on the receiving end of pitches for 2 decades. And, if there's anything that you don't like.
So first of all, you have to know our site. You have to know what we're doing. You have to put in some research, listen to a podcast or two, or read the website, or, like be familiar with what we're doing. It's not necessarily you, but I can't stand these pitches where I guess because I must be on some list out there where I'm a startup founder and I get these stupid PR pitches that have nothing to do with me. They're like, we can grow your customer base by 10x, and it's like a software as a service sort of thing. And it's like, I don't have sales. That's not me at all. So those sorts of like lazy sort of blast emails just get deleted immediately. If you are familiar with the site and you know what I'm doing and what we are doing more broadly, then, then send a pitch my way and try to make it personal. Try to show that you understand what we're doing and that you have some familiarity with us. I guess I don't like to get too technical. I'd like to try to stay kind of, so some pitches come in and it's somebody who's, their startup is making it easier to use data on the blockchain for some analytic kind of function. And it's like, that's kind of hard to talk about. Like, I don't, you might be fascinating, but it's sort of, if my eyes are glazing over, that's probably going to be a tough one to make interesting. So that's just obviously hit or miss. I can't really tell you, off the bat who's going to be interesting. But so, yeah, that's just sort of it. And pretty simple. Just know what we're doing and have a familiarity with it. And hopefully, you can make that come across in your pitch to me. And then, I'm usually pretty open to it. Yeah.
Do your homework, know who you're speaking to, and maybe keep it simple. What are your thoughts on like length of pitch or bullet point structure or anything like that? Or is it more like, I can tell in the first sentence that this person knows who I am and what I cover?
I like bullet points. I think that's good. And like, something along the lines of, this person can speak on these topics. A short little bio, of course, most people do this, is always helpful. Something that I like that I don't think a lot of people do is let me know what this person's presence is on social media, because if they've got 500,000 followers, that's great for me because I need help in promoting this. And if they're going to help me once the episode's out or the story's out by, tweeting it or putting it on Instagram or whatever, that will definitely catch my eye.
That's a really good point. That is a really good point.
It goes the other way. If I think somebody's really interesting and I look at their Twitter and they've got 4,000 followers, I might take a pass on that one. So, it's unfortunate. It's not always the case, but we do only have a limited reach, and so we always need help with getting the word out and spreading, the story or the podcast or whatever. So if your client has a good, social media presence, that's a big plus for us as a media company.
Well, let's hope that this bull market and Google can fix that for you.
Yes, fingers crossed.
I have a feeling that it's going to be, that once people stumble upon Decential Media, they're going to stick around. So hopefully that just has, straight line up growth forever.
Thank you. From your lips to God's ears.
What is your advice for a reporter who's looking to start out covering this industry?
The way I've always done it and what worked for me is I just like figuring out how things work and asking questions and getting a good so you can build a knowledge of like, okay, I know how smart contracts work, or I know how Ethereum works, or whatever. Because first of all, you're going to have to be explaining that to your readers. And so the more you understand it, hopefully the easier it is, and the more basic you can make it to get it across to someone, to ensure that they understand like why this story is important. It also helps when people come and they try to BS you, if you know how something works, and somebody's coming along and trying to, I don't know. It's not like they're trying to trick you or anything, but your BS radar is good, and you can kind of like detect something right away, so that you don't spend too much time on something that is maybe just self-serving to whoever that person is who's bringing you the story. It's a young person's game, to be honest, and I can't do this anymore. But you go to conferences, go out, take people out for drinks, have one-on-ones, build that trust with people. And it takes time, and, it's one story at a time. But, if you do that, I think with enough of that, people will see that you are trustworthy, and that, they'll feel that they can share information with you that maybe they shouldn't be sharing. That's pretty much how reporting works. But, then they're getting something out of it too. So there is a quid pro quo aspect. But yeah, just, always be working on your contacts. Always, I would, one of the first things I did, another reporter at Bloomberg taught me this trick, is like put together an email list with all your sources and people you speak to, and send your stories to them directly via email. Because on Bloomberg, for sure, not a lot of people have access to it. But even if they do have access to it on the website or wherever your writing is showing up, it's just a good way to keep them, to remind them that you're here and you're doing stuff. And, so when I was doing that at Bloomberg, I might not have talked to somebody for months, but they're like, as soon as I get on the phone with them, they've been reading my stuff and they know what I've been doing. And it's sort of like we didn't, no time was lost. So I like that kind of trick.
Does Decential have a newsletter, by the way?
We do. We have two. We have a weekly, the Web3 Rewind, where we sort of like pick up on some of the most interesting stories of the week, and just sort of like give you a little news flash, and then our own sort of hopefully funny and not too cynical take on it. And that's also, I write an editorial for that every week. And then we've got a music-focused one called The Beat, where it's all about on-chain music and what's going on in that space. It's also tough. It's just tough to be a reporter right now. There's been a lot of layoffs. CoinDesk has been laying off people. The Block, I think, did too recently, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's in the traditional media as well. I think the LA Times just did a big layoff. I think the Washington Post has done so as well. And so I don't know, the model is definitely broken, and I don't think anybody has quite figured out how to fix it yet.
Are you guys doing anything novel in that sense, in terms of, the business model side of things?
No, not at the moment. We've been really focused on growing our audience, and to try to just kind of go the traditional business plan, where it's advertising based, or there's sponsors for like a short film or a series of films that we do. We're toying with maybe, a subscription model where we wouldn't have to take ads. And so it would be reader funded, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're going to go the route of more native Web3 things with like a DAO or some sort of coin. I think that's just a little too far for me at this point. You mentioned before, we got into this when it was the last sort of gasps of the last bull market, and everybody had a lot of money. And I just had this feeling that the companies in this industry have when times are good, they have a lot of money to spend. And I felt like maybe that would protect us a little bit from the advertising model, which for media can be very challenging, but you know it from a PR firm, like one of the first things that dries up is PR and it's advertising. So in that sort of boom and bust cycle, it's tricky.
As service providers in this industry, we're not immune to the market fluctuations, but we get if you can figure out how to run a resilient business, then it's a great industry to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned that, it's a young person's game and like getting out there and meeting people is really important. But I also think one of the cool things about this industry, and that is so true, by the way, I totally agree with that advice. The other unique thing about this industry that I think you've done really well, especially in the past couple of years, is like you've expanded your network exponentially in a remote setting. And there is a way to meet people from all over the world in one daily sitting because we have Zoom and we have, the ability to meet people. How have you sort of forged new relationships virtually in the absence of like being able to get out there as much as you might like to?
Sometimes it's tricky because I think it's not as personal when you're online with someone, in a Zoom chat or on a screen. I guess I'm in a different role now, which I'm still adjusting to. I was used to being the reporter, and just that was kind of my job. That was the only part of my job. Was like just go out there, get the story, write the story, file the story. Then do it, rinse and repeat. Thousands of times. And now I'm editing, I'm putting podcasts out, I'm doing all this stuff, and it just kind of takes me in different directions. So I'm sort of really focusing on my reporters right now and trying to mentor them and help them kind of do what I used to do. And then, so, I've got we just had somebody at ETH Denver, we've got people going to ETH Paris and stuff like that, and Consensus in Austin. That's the role I feel like I'm in right now. I'm not writing very much anymore as well. So it's the need for me to have a big network has sort of diminished. But I'm just sort of putting my energy into these other areas more. And I like it. It's new. And it's sort of one of the reasons why I wanted to leave Bloomberg was to, I was bored. I wanted a new challenge. And this has certainly been that.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, for coming on the show today. I'm excited. I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to your newsletters and go read your book. Are there any resources or closing thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Decential is just DECENTIAL.io. That's our website. We're at Decential Media on Twitter. I think it's the same for Instagram. You can search us. We have a YouTube channel. We started to do YouTube shorts, which are really fun. And another challenge, that's one of the cool, there's this AI component to it now where you can basically just write a script. We've got a great video editor. He feeds it into an AI and it comes back with these amazing videos. It's kind of mind-boggling.
Wow. What AI?
To be honest, I don't even know. He does it. And it picks up on keywords in the text. And as long as I've kept it below 60 seconds, because that's what YouTube wants for a short, it'll come up with these meme stuff. And it's funny and it's good. And it's really sort of opened my eyes to how AI is definitely going to get embedded into workflows and the way that we do stuff. So check those out on YouTube. They're kind of fun. Are you
using AI on that note in any other areas right now?
No, we have a transcription service for the podcasts that I do, but as far as that's AI, it's mostly just kind of video to text sort of things. But no, mostly we're still 100% human at Decential for the most part in our writing and reporting. Yeah, those are the great ways to get in touch with us and see what we're doing. You can sign up for the newsletter on the website. It's free. Kelley, thank you for all the encouragement and the kind words today. It was really fun talking to you.
Thanks for tuning in to Proof of PR. This episode was brought to you by Melrose PR, the leading provider of communications and PR strategy for Bitcoin and Web3 innovators. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen today. To stay up to date on upcoming guests and news, visit proofofpr.com or follow us on Twitter at proofofpr. Until next time, keep learning, innovating, and hodling.